the one, the only, Ben Sion. Good morning and welcome to Yeshiva YouTube, Just Daf It. Today we're doing Masechas Nazir, Daf Samach Daled, number 64. A rate share for you today. We'll start on the bottom of Samach Gimel and Beis, 4 lines from the bottom. Ketzad Yara, this is a description of our Mishnah. The Mishnah ends off saying that if you went into a cave to be Tovel, right? We talked about yesterday about Tumas at Tahom, Tumah that was never discovered by anybody. So, if you happen to be Tameh when you were Tovel in the mikvah, so we assume you're still Tameh, even though you found that afterwards it was Tumas at Tahom. If not because you were Tor, as I explained yesterday in Yud Ben Sion, that you go after the status, the Chazaka. Safa, now the Gemara is talking about something else, about the fact that a dead person was floating in the water. The unique tumah of Safa. Safa and a metame in sheretz. Even though by a mace we found out that it is metame, if a dead body is floating on the water, it's in the cave with you, and you're under the same roof as the dead body. However, by a sheretz, tumas sheretz, one of the 8 shratzim that are mentioned in the Torah, and that are dead, which are metame b'sheretz, that is not metame when it's floating on the water. The Tanya, at least the Safek, the Tanya, Safek Tuma Safa Ben Akelim and Karka Tahora. Safek Tuma that's floating, we're going to learn this is Tuma Sheretz, not Tuma Sames. Whether it's floating in Kalim, in a bathtub or something like that, or in the Karka, it's floating in the ground, in a well or something like that, Tahora. If it's Safek, Rishimon Omer, if you're Safek, whether you touched it or you're under an oil with it, Rishimon Omer, Bekalim it's made of a Karka Tahora. By Kalim it's Tameh. By karka tahora, however, in the ground, if it's a cave, a cistern, or something like that, or a natural well, so then it's tahor. However, if it's in a kli, it's in a bathtub, then it would be tummy. My time. So we're going to explain the machlokas in Tana Kama Rabbi Shimon. Tana Dalan and Aleph on top. My time with Tana Kama. What's the reason the Rabbi Tana Kama? Amar Rabbi Yisrael Rav Dumi, Ksiv b'chol hasheretz hashoritz. It says the pasuk begins any sheretz wherever it is. Kol makom shehu sheretz wherever it is, wherever it's floating. The pasuk ends off on the ground. So the ground, yes. Floating on the water, no. Haketzad. So the first part of the pasuk mentioned seems to indicate whether wherever it is, even if it's floating on the water. The second part of the pasuk seems to indicate it's only with tame if it's on the ground. Haketzad. Vade mago tame. If it's for sure that you touched it, whether it's floating or it's on the ground, you're tame. Safek mago tor. However, if it's a safek, whether you touch it, so then it depends. If it's on the ground, you're tummy. If it's floating on the water, you're tar. This is the unique tuma of safa. If it's floating, Reb Shimon, my time. Reb Shimon makes a distinction between kalim and karka. Amar ula ksiv ach mayan. In the parsha, it talks about except for a natural spring. V'chsiv yitama, right? It says the pasuk al kor ach mayan obor mikveh mai miator, right? If it's a spring or a pit of gathered water, you're tor. However, it says if you touch the dead shratzim, you're tameh. How do you resolve the pasuk? Hakez asafa bekalim tameh. If it's floating, a sheretz is floating, a dead sheretz is floating in a bathtub, it's tameh. But karka tor. If it's a safek, it's floating in the karka, in the actual ground of a cave, let's say. So then you would be tor. That's the distinction Reb Shimon makes. Tana Rabbanan. We're going to talk more about this tuma of safa, floating tuma. Tana Rabbanan. Kol hani talin v'hani grarin sfeik antame. Neishen kimunachan. Anything which is being pulled, which is carried, sorry, hani talin is carried, v'hani grarin, or something is pulled, sfeik antame. Neishen kimunachan. Even though they're technically moving, right, and they touch you, right, a sheretz like we're talking about. The suffix is tam, because you're holding on to them or you're dragging them. They're staying in one place. If anything's rocking, everyone when you throw a dead sheretz, sveik antar. When you throw it, it's like floating on the water. Floating on the water is not dafka on the water. It's the fact that it's moving. It's rocking in a state of motion, not bound to a person. It's not being carried by a person. Sveik antar. So therefore, suffix tuma of safa, of floating, is tar. It only applies to certain tumos. for example, tuma sheretz, to exclude a kazayas of flesh from a dead person. V'amaya al pnei tuma, or if there's a corpse buried in the ground and you're suffering whether you went on top of it. This is talking about a zab or a zava. A zav and a zava have this unique tuma of mishkav and moshav, where if they're sitting on top of 10 mattresses, the bottom mattress becomes tamei. And likewise, if they're sitting on the bottom mattress and it's a stack of 10 mattresses, the top mattress becomes tamei. Their suffix tuma that is dizrak, that's being thrown or floating, there we would go, all these tumas we would go l'chumra, we'd say you are tamei. It's only when it comes really to sheretz, really, that's the only one. Lasui zav zava. The last clause, shematama mal kilamata, that's talking about zav and zav, have this unique tuma, the matame mattresses up and down. Bari Rami Barchama. So now the Gemara has a series of questions. Rami Barchama asks the following question: Meis bekli saf al pnei hamayim. Let's say you have a dead person in a kli, and the kli is saf al pnei hamayim. It's floating on the water, right? You take a piece of paper, you put it in a bottle, and you put it in the ocean. See who will get it. Instead of putting the piece of paper, you put a kazayas min ames. You put a portion of a dead person. Mahu. Basar kli alzin. Then we'll go after the kli. Basar, the kli is moving, so therefore it's like saf, it's floating, and therefore the tuma, suffix tuma. If you came in contact with that suffix tuma, would be tar. Apparently, this doesn't apply just to sheretz; it applies also to mace. Also, O basar misa azlina. Do we go after? Sorry, we'll go after the piece of the dead person, which is constantly in the same position. The bottle's moving. The piece of the dead person is not. In this little basar kliyas, and if you'll tell me you go after the kli and it's moving, mace al gabi sheretz. Let's say in the kli, you have a piece of a dead person on top of a sheretz, a dead sheretz. Mao came out the high tumas area, a high tumas shiva, right? A mace is matami for 7 days. A sheretz is only for 1 day. Come on, the machsa tuma b'kli dam. Yeah, they're different entities, so therefore, it's like the tuma is a place, right? We're talking about the mace over here, the mace on top of the sheretz. So the mace is separate from the sheretz, and therefore you can't say it's sitting in the kli in a stationary position. You'd go after the kli. Oh, dilma tuma smichsa here. Maybe it's just one lump together, the sheretz and the dead person. And therefore, like we said before, maybe you go after the fact that it's one thing, and you go after the misa. You go after the fact that it's this one solid piece of sheretz and mace is something which is not moving. The kli is moving, but it's not moving. If you'll tell me that it's the tuma of the kazayas of the mace is sitting in the kli. It happens to be on top of a sheretz, sitting in the kli, and the kli is moving. The tame vadai sheretz al gabi nevela v'tame, and it's tame vadai sheretz al gabi nevela safa mahu. Let's say a sheretz on top of a nevela. A nevela is an animal which wasn't ritually slaughtered, right? Mao came on the tarvaya tumas Arab. They both have the same tuma. The tuma only for 1 day. Basically, you touch it that day, you can go to the mikvah and do harav shemesh, and at shkias achama your tar. In tuma smichsa, it's one type of tuma, and it's like one thing. Maybe they're different in the fact that one, the shear of a nevela is matami only the kazayas. However, a sheretz with the kadasha, lentil amount of a sheretz is matami. So therefore, they're considered different and distinct, and therefore the top one is considered to be moving with the kli, right? If you say that it's distinct from the bottom thing, so then it's considered to be moving with the kli. However, if you say maybe it's one thing on top of another, so then maybe its place, right? Its place is with the thing on the bottom, and it's really not munach on the kli. It's munach on something which is stationary. The kli is moving, but the thing on the bottom is stationary. That's the question. If it's one entity, right? So then we go after the kli, like we said. You go after the kli that it's moving. However, if it's not one entity, the thing on top, you can't say it's in the kli. It's on top of something else which is stationary. The bottom thing is moving, but the top thing is not moving. Okay, when they're about tumas Arab, tumas smich, say, "Odilma high kazayis v'high kadasha." maybe you'll say there's difference, and therefore it's distinct, and therefore it's resting on the sheret and stationary. And therefore it's not tuma safa, and a suffix tuma would not be tor. Sheretz lagabi sheretz ma'u. Let's say you have one dead creepy crawler on top of another dead creepy crawler. Ma'u. Hani vaday chad shiurin. They're one shear. Agadash dilma kevan the mystic ma'adadi low. Maybe they're two distinct pieces of two dead bugs, two dead shrotzim. So therefore, maybe it's considered the top one is resting on the bottom one. Again, it's a suffix. You touch the top one, so maybe we would go l'chomer. Maybe since they're distinct, so therefore, maybe it's considered that they're in the kli, right? Meaning they're stationary. Let's say you have a dead bug on top of an nevela. The nevela is melted. It's not a solid, it's a liquid. It's like a liquid. And therefore, the top thing it's on top of a liquid, but the liquid is not something significant. And therefore, it's in the kli, and the kli is moving. Or maybe the fact is that an nevela really is considered food. It's in a liquid state, but it really is food. So therefore, it's considered to be lying on top of the food, and therefore it's stationary. There's a lot more. Let's say it is an ochel. Sheretz hagabi shechva zera mahu. Two different types of tumah. Shechva zera, which is semen, on the bottom. This is right there. It's not really a food; it's a liquid. So therefore, maybe it's considered to be in the kli, and the kli is moving. There's a lamar came on the misakra. Maybe since shechva zera is right is sent out of the body, shoots out of the body. Havalei ki ochla. It's like food. Sheretz hagabi mechata. So mechata safan hagabi amayim. Let's say you had water of the mechata from the para aduma in the kli, and then you had a sheretz on top of it. Mahu. Do we say that that's considered to be in the kli, or do we consider no, it's on top of the mechata, even though it's a liquid, and therefore it's considered to be stationary, and it would be matame b'safek. Well, yadin and teiku, and all these questions we don't know the answer, and it's a teiku. I mentioned before at the beginning that it seems that the Gemara originally assumed sheretz only has this kula, that if it's floating on the water, right, we assume that a suffix tuma is huigol kula, but you see that it happens to be by other tumas as well. That's the Gemara is talking about. At least by we said before that a kazayas min mace or machber, that's only a kazayas min mace, but maybe a whole mace itself maybe would be makel. The reasons for these I'm not going to go into. I could give an Ian shir. I was talking to someone yesterday. He asked me how many shirim I'm giving these days. I said yesterday I gave 8 shirim. I gave 2 daf yomi shirim, 2 Ian ben Sions on daf yomi, 2 mishnah yomi, 2 Ian on mishnah yomi. He said, how is it even possible? I said, I'm Superman. He said, no, really, come on. I said, really? I really am Superman. He said, how could you give an Ian shir on daf yomi? What if you don't have something to say? I say, it's not a problem. I always have something to say. He's like, how long does it take you to learn this? I say, like a half an hour. How long does it take to leave the shirim? I don't know, a little more than a half an hour. So the same amount of time it takes you to learn to learn for the shir, you give the shir? Is it even possible? I said, I told you, I'm Superman. So I really could give it Ian shir on Tuma Safa, but I like when Art Scroll seems bothered by something really bothersome to Art Scroll, and I haven't answered the question. So we'll do that again today, which is relevant to Samach Dalam and Beis, which will start right now. Amar Rav Hamnuna, Tab of Samach Dalam and Beis, Nazir v'osa Pesach sh'halchol b'kever atom b'shvi sh'lahen torim. A Nazir and someone who's bringing his car on Pesach. They encountered kever atom, right? Tumas at home we talked about. They realized afterwards that they had gone over land where there was a body barrier. No one knew about it. On the 7th day, Shalahan Torah, we see it wasn't the 7th day. The 7th day is when they go and sprinkle the Mei Chatas again. And then they go to the mikvah, and then they bring the Korban Pesach, or they shave their head. So we're going to see it's talking about, they found out, they're telling me after the Nazir shaved, and after the Korban Pesach, after he went to the mikvah. My time, Alima Tumas HaTomel Mister. Why is the Tumas not significant to forfeit their count, start counting again? Masive, my time. The Gemara explains the reason. Tumas is not strong enough to forfeit their count. Masive Rava asked the question, Yarli Tar, Tumas HaMes Tamei of our Mishnah, right? If he's going to, right, he finds out 2 months time after he finished counting his Naziras, right? Or even after he shaved, right? And when he realized that he was tummy with 2 months of he was in a tummy situation. He was tummy as a Nazir. Tummy, shecheskas tummy, shecheskas tar. If he was tar, at that point we go lakula. We don't change his chazaka. So why over there do we go or lechumra? Amar le modina lach benazir shemchusar tegalachas. Right? If he shaved already, so now he's a cheskas tara. Here we're talking about, right, where he shaved already, but where he didn't shave, he has a cheskes too, and then we'd go the chumrah. Amalei Rava, af anam odin alach, but osa pesach, d'lo mechusar v'lo klum. Here also, when we mentioned 2 cases on Nazir, we're talking about he shaved, and Pesach is where he went to the mikveh. Amalei Abai hamachusar harav shemesh. He became tamei after he went to the mikveh. He still needed harav shemesh. Right, you have to wait till shkia sachama in order to be able to eat kachim. Amalei Shimsham and Mela Arva. He said back to him, that's not mechusar waiting for something. Every day we know the sun is going to set. So once you go to the mikvah, it's automatically like the sun set already, and therefore you're not waiting anything. You're already considered to be a chazaka of Tara. Even Abaye, who asked the question about Harav Shemesh, he retracted his question. The Sanya of Braisa, Yom Melos Tavi, Tog Melos Lo Savi. This is talking about a woman who gives birth. Right? She gave birth to a girl. So after 14 days, she has to go to the mikvah, and then she waits another 66 days before she brings kachim. On the 80th day, she becomes tahora, and then on the 81st day, she brings her karbanos for yoledes. Tavi, yomulos tavi. Let's say she has a miscarriage. She became pregnant again during those 80 days, and she had a miscarriage on Yom Belos. Now, the article translates Yom Belos as the 81st day. I'm going to translate it as the 80th day. I'll talk about why I translate the 80th day in Eon Metzia. Yom Belos Tavi. If she has a miscarriage on the 80th day, she has to bring another carbon for the miscarriage. The miscarriage, if the fetus is 40 days old, to bring a carbon for it, it's like a lettuce. Toch Belos Lo Savi. However, if it was before 80 days, the carbon that she brings at the end of 80 days for the daughter suffices for the fetus also. Let's say she has 2 miscarriages. She has a miscarriage before 80 days. And then she has a miscarriage, right? She counts 80 days. On day number 60, she has a miscarriage, right? So counting from day number 60, you have another 80 days, 140 for the second miscarriage. Right. I'm sorry. For the first miscarriage, she has a miscarriage on the 60th day. So really, technically, she should bring a carbon on the 140th day, right? But that's exempted because on the 80th day, she's bringing a carbon, and it happened before. She's exempted from that. What about on day 100? She has another 120. I don't know, another miscarriage, right? So that one comes before day 140. 140 was the day she was supposed to. She doesn't have to bring a carbon. But the Bryce is teaching that even if she has on day 120, she has a second miscarriage, she also has to bring another carbon. Only if it's on the day of her completion, she has to bring another carbon. But any miscarriage, even a second miscarriage, which happened before, right? Which happened before the completion of 140 days, right? She does not have to bring a carbon. So she gets exempted from 2 miscarriages with this carbon after 80 days. So Amar Rav Kahana, Shiny Hacha the Michsara carbon. Rav Kahana, this is an independent halacha about a yoledes. So we're going to see Abaye is relevant in a second. Rav Kahana said about this brisa, Shiny Hacha the Michsara carbon. How do you explain this? The reason is because when she had the first miscarriage at day 60, and also she became pregnant, right, before day 80, so she did not bring a korban yet. She didn't bring a korban yet, so therefore she's not considered completely tahor yet. And the korban she brings negates whatever happened beforehand. So the Gemara asks, Hasam nami michsar herav shemesh. Even if the day, if she had a miscarriage on day number 80, right? Day number 80, why is she bringing a separate korban for the miscarriage? right? She also, even if she went to the mikvah on the 80th day, like Gemara is assuming, right? And then she had the miscarriage after she went to the mikvah, she needs a Herav Shemesh, right? So therefore, she needs Herav Shemesh. It's like she, before the Korban. And therefore, she should be exempted because only Shkilas HaChamash is completely pure. Amar Lebai Shimsha Meila Arva. No, if she has the miscarriage after she goes to the mikvah, even though she needs Herav Shemesh, it's already considered like the sun set. Every day the sun sets. So therefore, it's like a new chiyuv already, right? By going to the mikvah on the 80th day, basically she's ending her period for the daughter that she had. Anything afterwards is a miscarriage, even though she's not tor yet until the tor to eat truma until shkias hachama the 80th day, end of the 80th day, shkias hachama the beginning of the 81st day. Nonetheless, it already is over because usually the sun always sets, and therefore Abai we see retracted and held on to the svara shimsha memela arva. That's the conclusion of today's shir. Today's Mariyah Ben Sion, where we discuss a question that the article asked about at the end of this Gemara over here. The Gemara notes that really she doesn't go to the mikvah on the 80th day. She's going to the mikvah on the 14th day. That's the halacha. She goes to the mikvah after 14 days of tara, after having a daughter, when she stops seeing blood. Then she has 66 days of tara, and then she's 80 days full. And then the 81st day, she brings her karbanos. But she doesn't go to the mikvah again on the 80th day. So what's the Gemara talking about over here? What is the Gemara talking about over here? Right? That's the question the article asks, and the Rush asks. If you want an answer to that question, I'm sure you're bothered also. Stay tuned for Ian Ben Sion coming up next.